All right, let's jump right in. If you're a biomedical researcher, you know the deal. There's the actual science, the discovery, the aha moments, and then there's all the other stuff. Managing software, writing scripts, just wrangling data. It can feel like this huge chasm between asking a scientific question and actually getting an answer. Well, today, we're looking at an open-source tool that's trying to build a bridge across that gap. It's called...
The creators of the article we're looking at today just put it perfectly. All that data wrangling, all that coding and pipeline setup, that's not science. It's friction. It's the stuff that slows you down. And this is the exact problem that MedgeClaw was built to solve. It's all about removing that friction so researchers can, get back to doing the actual research.
So right now, if you're a scientist, you're often caught between two very different worlds. On one side, you've got your point-and-click tools. Super easy to use, right? But they can be these rigid black boxes. It's tough to customize them or even reproduce your analysis perfectly. Then on the other side, you've got raw scripting in R or Python. It's incredibly powerful, totally flexible, but it has a steep learning curve. Neither one is a perfect fit for a scientist who just wants to ask a question and get a solid answer.
And this is the big promise here. Imagine, instead of clicking through a bunch of menus or writing lines and lines of code, you could just ask. Just type your question in plain English. Something like, hey, run a differential expression analysis on this dataset. That's the idea behind MedgeClaw, to be this conversational bridge that translates your question into real, executable, scientific code. So you're probably wondering, how does it actually work? Let's peel back the layers and see how it goes from a simple message to a full-on analysis.
Okay, it's basically a four-step loop. It all starts with you just sending a message in something like Slack or Discord. That message gets routed through a gateway called OpenClaw, which then hands it off to an AI model, in this case, Anthropic's Claude Code. The AI then actually runs the analysis inside a self-contained Docker environment. And finally, you get to see the results on a real-time dashboard, or you can even jump right into the code yourself in RStudio or Jupyter. It's this complete cycle, from a simple question to an interactive result.
Now, this is not just some simple chatbot, and this is really the key. It comes preloaded with this massive library of over 140 scientific skills. Think of these super detailed prompts and tool definitions that guide the AI. They cover everything from genomics and drug discovery all the way to clinical research. So it's not starting from zero. It's tapping into a deep well of established scientific workflows.
And under the hood, this thing is packed with the gold standard tools of the trade. That Docker environment where the code runs, it's filled with the packages you already know and trust. For the R folks, you've got DESeq2 and Seurat. For the Python crowd, you're looking at ScanPy and scikit-learn. What this means is the analyses it generates are built on the exact same foundations researchers would use if they were coding everything by hand.
Let's just quickly run through a few other cool features. The whole messaging-first design is perfect for collaborative lab environments. The real-time dashboard is awesome because you're not just waiting around in the dark for some long job to finish, and you can always just pop into a familiar IDE if you need to tweak something yourself. They even included a really thoughtful fix for a super common headache: proper font support for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean characters in your plots.
Okay, this all sounds pretty amazing, right? A conversational AI that just does your data analysis for you. But with any new tech, especially in the open source world, there are always trade-offs. It can't be that simple. So, what's the catch? All right, time for a little reality check. A tool this powerful doesn't just happen with a single click. There is some real overhead you need to think about.
First off, MedgeClaw isn't just one single piece of software. It's actually built on top of at least 3 other major projects. You've got the OpenClaw gateway, Anthropic's Claude Code AI, and a whole separate skill library called K-Dense. Now, if any one of those pieces has a problem, well, it can get pretty tricky to figure out what's going wrong with the whole system.
And that dependency chain leads to some real-world hurdles. You've got to be comfortable with Docker and Node.js to even get it running. You need to get your own API key for the language model. You have to set up and configure a bot for Slack or Discord. And here's the big one. Since an AI is writing the code, you absolutely 100% have to audit that code before you can trust the results for something like a publication. It's a fantastic assistant, but it's not a replacement for your own scientific rigor. So, after all that, what's the final verdict on MedgeClaw? Where does it stand?
This slide gives us some hard numbers to work with. When the source article was written, the project had almost 1,000 stars on GitHub, which, wow, shows a ton of interest. But it only had 12 commits to its main code repository.
That tells you pretty clearly that this is a very, very early stage project. It has momentum and a lot of buzz, but it's still brand new. So let's just boil it all down. On the pro side, you get this amazing natural language interface, that huge library of scientific skills, and code you can actually look at and verify. But on the con side, the setup is a real task. It's a super young project that could change on a dime, and you have to bring your own LLM API key to the party. That's the trade-off, plain and simple.
And all of that brings us to the final assessment from the source material. MedgeClaw is a totally plausible, transparent solution to a very real problem. It's not some mysterious black box. But given that hefty setup and how new it is, it's a project that's definitely worth watching more than it is something you'd want to bet your critical day-to-day research on, at least not yet.
So this leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. MedgeClaw is just one early example, but it points toward a potential future. Are tools like this going to fundamentally change how scientists interact with their data? Is the future of the lab less about writing code and more about just knowing how to ask the right questions? That's definitely something to think about.